Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm happy to see the faces that I met maybe before in the SQA Days 2021, 22. So my name is Sargis. I'm here to share my experience that I get during these last 8 years in automation. Hopefully I'm here because after last challenging visit to Belarus, because when I was leaving the country, they wanted to deport me because my passport looks suspicious because there was just two free pages. So they tried to deport me because there was a question why I came to Belarus, and they don't care about the conference. So fortunately, I'm here. So it means that finally they didn't deport me, and I came here with a new passport, so to not have the same problem. How many of you doing automation or wants to do? Oh, nice. In my previous experience, when I was speaking in Germany in one of the conferences, there was a girl who was doing only manual testing, and the subject of the topic was automation like a sex. Around what? And when we went to that session, it was like beginning like automation like a sex in a high school. Everybody says that they do, but no one is doing. So my idea is it's 21st century and everybody having a sex in a high school. Let's do proper automation. So I'm trying to help you guys to share my experience with you how to do some tricks in automation. And specifically in this topic, we're gonna speak about creating a nice framework for the Selenium. So, what about we are going to talk today? So we'll start about how to design the framework to be able to use HTTP requests. And how to create a test data before the test case run, and how to clean up after it without doing any specific UI actions. We'll talk about a practical example how to send the HTTP request from your code and get the responses, how to manage the responses when we are getting it from the HTTP request, how to store login information in a browser, create, edit, delete the objects after test or before test, in the middle of the test. And in the end, we will talk about some tricks, best practices that I will suggest to use if you need it. So what is the test setup actually? We are saying the test setup using a REST API. And why it's important actually. So there is a kind of unquestionable idea that the single test should test only one thing. And the bug or the issue in the other area of the application shouldn't affect on the run result of the current test. So, for example, if login is broken, the create project test should run. I mean, if login broken from the UI. So if we have a test report and there is one failure that is login, so there should be only one failure that shows that the login from UI is not working. But the other tests shouldn't be affected. So every test should be independent. Everyone who starts the automation, they don't face this problem. But when you have a suite of 100 tests and it's run for 4 hours, you need to do something, yes? It's just 100 tests, but 4 hours. So you should go for the parallel run using a grid and using some nodes to distribute your tests. So every test itself should be independent to be able to run parallel, and the data from one test shouldn't affect another test. So we need to make it faster. So if we will skip some actions from the UI, we will do from the API, it will be faster and it will be reliable and it will not randomly fail as we're doing from the UI. So every test should create and clean the data after itself. So every time we should make sure that we are cleaning all the data that we created during the test so that the data will not affect the other tests. So actually, how is the test lifecycle happening? There is a test initialize, which is kind of a setup. There is an actual test run, and there is a test cleanup. So in every phase, I will try to share my experience how to do some actions from API level, from HTTP requests. So Selenium test often involves the setup. What does it mean, like saying the setup? Involves the setup. So sign up. Yep, to log in, we need to sign up. Submit some data, for example, create a project, create an issue, create a task, so we'll be able to test something, submit something. Page navigations. This one is a bit more about page pattern, like page objects pattern, but we will have some specific examples how to integrate the idea that we are talking today now, to integrate to the page pattern. And some interaction actions, so assign, delete stuff. Before the actual test that we need to test. So there could be some weird actions that we need to do. And then in the end, we need to run the test. I shortly want to introduce the tools that I'm going to use during the example that I'm showing. I just want to give you information. So if I'm using Java, it doesn't mean that this solution only for Java. So you can use in any programming language, Python, C#, Ruby, but the idea is the same, just the language is different. So for the example that I'm going to later share with you, so you can also take a look, is in Java. So for this project, I'm using the Maven to build the project. So I'm using the test engine runner. So everything is clear. Like, do you familiar with the tools? So there is an OK HTTP library which will help us to send the API call from the Java code. We'll use the JSON to maintain the JSON strings, so it will be easier to set and get the properties from the JSON. For sure, we are going to use the lovely Selenium WebDriver, and it's not visible, but you don't need. You will get in a presentation. It's the example in a GitHub. It's a link in the GitHub, so you can get all the examples on the solution on the GitHub. And to show the examples, I'm using this open source project, Taiga, which is kind of open source for the project management. So there is a possibility to create a project, issue, and stuff. And it's free and open source, so all the examples are going to touch this application. So let's get started with the Selenium. For example, there's a page in this web application, and it's project page. Let's say that we are going to test these two buttons. The test that we are going to write needs to come to this page and make sure that the like button and the watching button exist there. So this is a simple test case. So what we need to do, actually, to test these two buttons, we need to open the login page. We need to set the credentials. So all this account is public and you can use. It's a testing account. We need to click on the login button, and we'll be navigating to Discover Project page. We need to click on the folder icon to navigate to the projects list. We need to create a project. Select the type of the project. And then fill the details, project details. Click on the Create Project button, and you will navigate to the backlog. Now you need to go to the timeline. And voila, you have accessibility to test the two buttons. So what we are actually doing, this is one of the pieces of the code that in Java that doing all the flow that I was talking about. I'm using a page object pattern, and so this talk not about the page object pattern that I love, but it's clear, yes, what it's doing. It's logging in from UI by typing the credentials, clicking on submit, then navigating to the project folder button, project list. Then it's creating a project by selecting a type, typing all the information, clicking the submit button, navigating to the specific project page, and then finally testing the two buttons. Do you think that it's worth to do all these actions to test two buttons? So today we're going to find out a way how to do it like nicer, better, and more usable and faster. Yeah? So actually, I can show you also the test run. When I'm running this test, I show you, it's doing exactly the same stuff that I was talking about. It's not showing here, but it's playing here. I don't know how to make it there, but it's... Okay, it's just a flow that from all the screenshots, and just clicking and showing actually what it's doing. Okay, go ahead. It's not moving. It's only changing here. Let's maybe do this. No. Let's close the one. Yep. Oh, okay. So the videos are a problem here. We need a tester actually here. We need a tester here to test these connections and stuff before we start. Yep. So actually, what's happening when we are clicking that login button? Did you ever think what's happening actually when I'm clicking the login button? There's something in the backend happening, yes? Exactly, but how it do? Did you ever dig in how it's doing and what it's actually doing in a browser? So when you close the tab and again opening and it's logged in already. So there should be something saved in the browser, yes? So browser remembers that there was a login and the session is still alive. Cookies was old school. I will talk about that. Because keeping local storage now. Because coming soon, Chrome, like the leading company, Google, going to show unsecure all the websites that's keeping the token in the cookies because it's not secure. So now all the modern applications trying to keep all the private data in the local storage. But let's see, we are clicking login button, and let's dig in what's happening. It's a bit small. If you don't see, you can come a bit like on the front. Actually, what it's doing a post request. Yep. Here you can see it's post request with the URL, and there was a successful request. So if there was a request, there was something that we got back. Yeah. So this was the parameters. So the HTTP request has its header, where you can put everything that you need, the information. So the browser took the data from the UI. It's put the password, the type of the request, and the username. It put on the request and sent to the server. So server did the authentication, and then in a response, we see that there is a lot of stuff, weird stuff, but there is still stuff. It's just a part because it's too long. I just took the screenshot of the part that we need. So we have an authentication token. This is the token that allows you, that giving you permission to get the data from database or do some request to the server. So also, if we will dig into the local storage, yes, here is local storage. You can find local storage, session storage, and the cookies here. It's when you inspect the element that it's in the application section. Yeah, there is an application section. There's a token. which contains the token. And every time when you close your tab and then opening, it's reading the local storage. If there is a token, if the token is active, it's not killed, the website will be open, logged in. And also, it keeps the user information for the extra check. So it means that these two parameters are necessary to have a logged-in application. So why we cannot do it from the backend and manually put on the browser local storage and then open the browser, or open the website? So if we send the call, we get the authentication token, we get all this user information, so we can just put it in the browser data and then go to the page. And then voila, it will be logged in without typing anything. Yeah? Let's try it actually. So, do you familiar with the Postman? I mean, a lot of people using a Postman for the automation. I just want to disappoint you, it's not an automation tool. At least for me, it's my personal opinion. This is a great tool to test some API calls, to test your data, to test your API test, but then better to have a programming language code that will run. But I understand that some people don't know programming language, but they are totally familiar with the Postman, and I'm totally okay with the people doing it. But the idea is from my personal perspective that it's not too reliable, it's not fast, and it's not possible to run in any continuous integration. So if we are writing a test and not running in a continuous integration, so it's not automation. So if you have already 5 test cases, you have to have continuous integration. You have to run in some servers, you have to get results, you have to break the build, and you have to fix the build. So it's the most funny part when the build is broken. Yeah? So we can test the exactly same request that we saw in the browser data in the Postman. So what we're doing, we are putting here the same, just copying and pasting from the inspect element application section. We are taking the URL. We are putting the username, password, and the type of the request. And when we submit the send button, we are getting the same data. This is a nice JSON, and the JSON library will allow us to take any of these variables and use it. So if we can do something from Postman, 100% there is a way to do it from the code. In our example, to any code, it could be like Ruby, Python, C#. In our case, so if we have this example working here, we have a way to do in Java. So it looks like this. It's nothing magical. It's just we are using an OKHTTP client that I showed in the introduction. We are giving a media tab, which is for the login in this case. So your application can have a different type. You should check in your web browser and put the same parameters. This application for the login, and generally they are using URL encoded, and the rest of the application using application JSON. So, but there's a different type of it, so you can use whenever you want. We are creating a body. In the body, we are putting a username that is given here in the method, and the password. And giving the base URL plus the authentication part, and adding the headers, which has the method of it, and then just executing it. And from the Java code, we are getting exactly the same information that the web application getting the information and putting in the local storage. So in this case, we will have this kind of the code. Now we are touching the Selenium part, doing for the Selenium. So how to log in? For login, we need just now the variables that are changing its username and the password, yes? We are calling from the client login, is the method that we created before, giving a username and a password. And here in the login response, we had all the data. Then we are opening the login page, but doing nothing. Just the login page is open. Do you know about the JavaScript executor? Yeah. It's a thing in Selenium WebDriver that you can execute any kind of Java code that you want on the browser. Give an alert and give whenever you want. And this JavaScript will store the token inside the local storage. What it's actually doing is Windows local storage set item for the token, just parsing this response and getting authentication token. And this call will set the authentication token inside the, like, for example, Chrome browser. And the second one is the user info, and it's necessary for the authentication, and also we are putting in the same way. And from the test, actually, we are just calling login, giving the credentials, and that's all. It will open the browser, like when it's already open the web page, doing all the login stuff, and you are ready to test. So we're creating a project from UI, yes? In a previous example, like that. So if we can log in with the API calls, why we cannot create a project? So because we were testing the two buttons, we were not testing anything related to creation of the project. So it's exactly the same. You can just manually create and follow what's happening here. There is a one call with a project that this is doing a post request, and this is the parameters, yes. The template one is a Scrum, description, private or not, and the name. And it's, of course, possible to do from the Postman, yes? So if it's possible in a Postman, it's possible from any programming language. So first of all, we are creating one method for the specific application that will do the post request. There is nothing strange or nothing suspicious. It's just the application JSON, and it's getting the JSON string, that the data, name, description, everything from here. And then when it's executing the code, it's returning as JSON, which contains all the project data. In this case, this is the piece of code that will create a project. Just in a hash map, if we are putting all these parameters, JSON will create for us JSON string from the hash map, and we will give that JSON string to the post request. Yep. So how we are integrating it to the page object pattern? Yes, every page has its URL, etc., and this URL is dynamic. In this case, you see that here it has the base URL. It shows that it's project. This is the username, and this is the project name that I give. So it's taking the project name, replacing all the spaces with a dash, and concatenating to the URL. Yeah? So when we are opening the project, like when we are creating the project page object, we just need to give the name and the ID. And just in case I give also project, but it's not mandatory. So just in case if you later will develop something that will need something, for example, project status. Yeah? And the get URL will look like this. Project, username, and the name, but replacing spaces with a dash. And in this case, when you just call the new project page, giving the project and open, it will directly open the project page already logged in, because we logged in from there. Okay, this is the test, the same exactly, testing the same thing that I showed you previously from the UI. So what it's doing, this only line, this is logging and putting all the data to the browser instead of typing and clicking. This call is creating actually project. So we have one project. This is about a turn down, cleaning after ourselves. Yes? And I will talk about a bit later about this one. So we are opening the project page, and it's here. Check the buttons. Actually, I'm not sure that it works. Huh? There is another video, but I'm not sure that it will work. So it's not working. It's working only here. So actually, it's again the same, but you will find it in the presentation. I just want to mention one simple thing. When we are doing all the stuff, just forgetting about the reliable test and test only one thing, if we are running it from the UI, the test takes 14 seconds. If we are preparing from, with the REST API, and then running the exact case, we have 1 second something. Yeah, because everything is done from the API, it's everything fast, and just opening and checking, and that's all. So, and this one is the live application, so it's neither network time, etc. So if it's local, it will be faster. So the same thing, actually, I don't want to dig in because this is the same to create the issue. In issue, just you are giving the project to mention in which project create the issue. But all the idea is the same, is doing a post request with the specific parameters. So cleaning after I'm a bit running because there is 10 minutes. I want to finish. So if you have a question later after the session, and then I'm around till tomorrow. So cleaning after the test. So we create a project, yes, to test something. We have to delete it after ourselves because later it will disturb other tests because they should testing the project list. There will be redundant project that could affect on our test. So when we are deleting from UI, again, in the same place, we can see that there is a send delete request, and it's deleting the project. And again, same story. If we can delete, we can do it from everywhere. So delete is simpler. You just create a delete request and giving the all information, and it's just deleted in milliseconds. So I want to give some tips and tricks about Selenium and the REST API stuff. So let's go for the logging info in a cookie. I already mentioned this is bad idea, but some of us working in an application that they are old and they still didn't refactor it to make it in a local storage. Still, there is a possibility to keep the login information in the cookies, but it's easier than executing a JavaScript because we're just adding the cookie with the specific data. And that's all, it's logged in. Yep. Managing cookie, this is not about logging in and stuff, but in any time you can manage all your cookies that you need. It doesn't matter, it's login information, it's just the data, or you need to put some cookie in the browser later to check some behavior. So easily, you can add cookie, you can get cookie, you can get all cookies, delete cookie, and delete all cookies. This is really easy, and instead of doing UI actions to generate that cookie in the cookies, just do this fast call. It will register all the cookies there, so you will continue without going and clicking and making actions. Yep. This is one trick that it's not kind of a concern to the topic, like to the REST API stuff, but this is really nice thing. Instead of downloading the driver, Selenium driver, and keeping in a repository or the local stuff, there is a nice Maven plugin if you are using Java. You are just getting this plugin, giving the location in your project directory, giving which versions do you want, and when you do Maven install, it will download all the drivers and will store in your computer and will use exactly that drivers. And you don't need to download, put there, and then give a path, etc. Everything is done by this plugin. And you can do like, this is for a Mac, Linux, Windows, everything. It has everything, so you can use it. This makes it more faster, and when you have a continuous integration, you actually can do this, and then when you need to upgrade the browser and the driver, you just do from the code without bothering people to change the images or download and put on a server so it will run. This is the JavaScript executor that I talked about before. So if there is a special custom implementation of the click, and the Selenium's native click is not working for you, you can try execute JavaScript, which will go and click on that element. This is very specific case that sometimes that native click is not working because of the implementation. So this is the way that you can try to click by JavaScript. This is the one of the proof that I was saying that you can execute anything whenever you want and how you want with the JavaScript. Just you need one JavaScript developer to give you the JavaScript if you don't have JavaScript skills. And wait for page. This is tricky moment in the Selenium suite, so wait until the page will be loaded. One of the best things to do is execute the JavaScript and wait until the return document ready state will be complete. So this is responsible for the JavaScript actions. If there is a JavaScript going on, Selenium will not know that there is something. It's just checking the network, and this one will check JavaScript. There is specific cases for this kind of waiting for the AngularJS 2. So if I'm not mistaken, it's driver ng. You can import to your project and wait for the AngularJS stuff. Taking a screenshot. Before like Selenium 2 and in the beginning, there wasn't possibility to, and we're creating some robots to take a screenshot. But unfortunately, there is a way now to take the screenshot from the Selenium code. Like exactly the same driver, just casting as a text screenshot and just taking a screenshot on a failure if there is need. So this is several lines code before we are doing some classes, creating the classes that will take the screenshot, etc. And if there is a specific HTML that you want to check, for example, this button should be red and there's a class and the class responsible for the color, and you want to, it's important to check your color, you want to check the color, you can get the outer HTML and find if there exists that specific class selector that's responsible for the color, and you can check whenever you want inside the HTML. And HTML we are getting from browser, so if there is an issue, we'll catch it. And maximizing, it's two ways in the Windows. It's working managing Windows and maximize, and it will maximize your screen. And for the Chrome, we can just say start maximized. Give a Chrome option before creating the project, before creating the driver instance. And that's all. I guess I was in time. Yes, I was a bit running. If you have questions, I guess we have some time to answer the questions. If you didn't manage to ask the question, just catch me somewhere there.
Okay, first question. What do you think about JUnit instead of TestNG?
JUnit is a bit old, I mean about JUnit 4. There's a JUnit 5 that's copying everything from TestNG and calling it JUnit 5. Just instead of listener, there is an extension. Instead of there's just a word playing. And the JUnit 5 is not supporting end-to-end test right now. With JUnit 5, you can do only unit testing right now. They have their backlog, and some they will support. And TestNG, I like TestNG because of the listeners. They are modern, they are responsive, they are fixing the issues. It's super easy to run parallels with the test engine with just putting one line, two parameters in one line in the XML file, and it's like running parallel, and everything is super easy. With JUnit rules, JUnit 4 rules, it's hell. So. Okay. I prefer TestNG, but I don't have anything against JUnit.
Okay, and one more question about independent tests. You can save your time if do some dependencies and do not close WebDriver, but start next test, or not to close the page.
Yeah,
what do you think about it? In which cases can we use not independent tests, or you think that only independent test should be in the test suite?
The independence that I was talking about is not concerning that the technical stuff, the opening the browser and the closing. Independent stuff is more data independence, setup independence and the data independence. Personally, I would like to spend a bit more time and close the browser, clean the cache and the cookies, and then start the next one. But sometimes you just don't need to close it open because it takes more time. Just clean all the data, local storage, session storage, and it's like milliseconds to make that calls, and then continue on the same screen. But it will not disturb you in running parallel. So I will call that kind of a test isolated because the test itself is isolated. The environment is not isolated. So the browser that is not isolated is kind of okay. So you can continue if you need to save some time. It's my suggestion, I mean. But personally, in my job, I'm always closing the browser and cleaning all the stuff.
I want to ask some questions. The first is, did you ever deal with such situations like login form is in
From URL.
non-Angular application and then it redirect into Angular application? Did you ever make auto test for such?
I didn't done that kind of stuff, but I'm pretty sure that the page objects, page navigation will help you to generate the data from one page and put in another. So when you are executing the JavaScript, it doesn't matter where from you get the authentication token. Just open the screen and then put it there. Mm-hmm. So there is at least workaround.
And another question, you told about screenshots, you can make them from TestNG. And did you ever made Jira tasks with these screenshots, with maybe names of auto tests? In Jira, yes, automatically made not only screenshot, but screenshot in Jira task.
Yeah, assigning to the Jira task.
Yeah, assigning.
I'm pretty sure that there is some plugins and Jira is configurable and you can do, but in my current job we are not using a Jira and I didn't dig in that integration. But I'm pretty sure that there is a plugins for the Jira that can kick off the run in the Selenium, in the clouds, in the Jenkins, and then receiving the data back to the Jira and showing you there. So there should be possibility, but we need to research on it.
And one more question. You told about Postman. Did you ever deal with insomnia? And if you do, why do you think that Postman is better than insomnia?
I didn't use another one, but the Postman is super easy for me to use. I forget to say, вы можете задавать вопросы на русском тоже. Отвечу на английском.
Thanks for the talk. As I understand, you prefer sterilize the conditions of browser cache and etc. But a real user will never do that themselves. They are often using same conditions with not clean cache and etc. So you probably won't catch some issues connected with cross connections of the application pages and functionality. It will happen pretty often, I think. What do you think about that?
Actually, I didn't talk about the cache cleaning. So it was cookies and the local storage, but still there is the issue that you are mentioning. So there could be the situation that the action will not generate that cookie, for example, that we need. But right now we need to think about, do we need to test the generation of the cookie, or do we need to test something that is based on that? So if it's based on that, we can set it. But if it's important to check also if their cookie is generated, there could be another test that is responsible for checking that cookie is generated or not. So this is kind of the isolation of the test cases. So every test should test one thing. Like it's like ideal one thing, no one doing that, even me. But we are always talking about ideal stuff, rather to get better result. So the idea that I'm saying is test is like at least one flow, yes? So not do the project creation and do the task creation and then issue creation and connect everything together and then have something like mixed. and you will have more issues. But cache is more sensitive, so I'm not generating any cache, and I'm not cleaning the cache, because cache is more user-specific, and it can store some other data that you will need in other tests.
Спасибо за доклад, думаю, на русском будет получше.
Нет проблем.
Я думаю, что ваш русский лучше, чем мой английский. Такой вопрос, почему мы во время написания тестов не создавали проекты прямо в базе данных, и там же можно будет их удалять, то есть клинап делать. Так будет быстрее, и если в API-шке будет баг, то тест тоже завалится, независимо от кнопок.
Yep. But I will answer in English, sorry. There is a way to run the query and set the data in the database, but I'm not fan of it, because in this case, we are actually creating the data as it's supposed to be created. In the database, there could be some table edit, and you have to go and change your queries and maintain your stuff. In this case, when we are running the API code, like API request and getting, it doesn't matter how many tables there were added and stuff. But yes, it is faster, and the cleanup also faster. If we will go a bit advanced, there is Spring in Java, maybe you hear about it. So the Spring, what it's actually doing is recording all the queries and reverting all the queries after the test, which is more faster. But it's a bit more advanced level, so I try to keep this talk in a medium level, intermediate level. So, but there is a way you can execute, and it's your choice. If you feel that it's safe to test your application by running the query and storing the data in a database, go for it. Personally, I'm trying to do the API calls, because in this case, we are also trying to test APIs. I will isolate this talk, this solution, from the Selenium, we will have a nice API suite. Just calling, checking the result, calling, checking the result. It will be nice API integration tests. I just try to combine it with the Selenium, because automation testers usually writing Selenium tests and not digging in the integration in the unit tests. It's live, but yes.
К сожалению, у нас время позволяет еще 2 вопроса, и потом можно будет пообщаться с докладчиком где-нибудь в кулуарах, на коридоре. Вот, поэтому 2 вопроса.
Можно на русском тоже?
Да, конечно.
Какой сборщик вы используете? Раннер, Shurified плагин для Maven.
Извините. Fire.
Surefire.
Yeah. Okay. Failsafe. Surefire is good for the access. Failsafe itself using a Surefire, but Surefire isolated itself for the unit testing, and the failsafe is more for an end-to-end test. So when you have a test failure, it will not fail the build. It will continue to run the rest tests. But the Surefire, if the fails the second test, the build will killed. Like its configuration maybe stuff, also you are using the failsafe edition of it. So if you are more interested in it, just catch me somewhere. I will show you how I'm configuring in a POM XML file.
And 2 questions more. Okay. First, on what level do parallel tests? In class methods or how? In XML file?
I'm preferring, it's not the best way for sure. In my case, I'm using class levels.
And you show an example that you clear all data after
the test.
every test, not class.
It's up to you. This was just one case, so after one method, I showed that case. But it depends on the situation. So if you need, you can do whenever you want. You are free in that.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, thanks for presentation. I have 2 questions about what do you think about the approach when using serialization of JSON response and requests to Java objects? It's
I do that.
Yep.
The question why I didn't show it, that in a previous SQA test, I made it heavy and more advanced with the Jackson serialization, deserialization, and the people were a bit lost. So this time I wanted to keep it a bit simple, just use the Gaston objects, and it's easy just get and the set values to not go into the serialization. But for the serialization, if it's like simple application, there is no like custom serialization stuff. For me, the best one is again the Gaston serializer. But in the application with I'm working for, it's a bit complex. There is a customized serialization. For example, I don't know why it's a bad solution, but in whole application, in any word, the ID is uppercase. So we need a custom serialization. In this case, for me, the Jackson is more configurable, and you can do whenever you want with the Jackson. So.
Okay, so you think it's better to use serialization approach?
It's readable.
It's readable, yeah.
It's readable and it's easy. If you can do that, go for it. Especially if you will skip the Selenium part and go for the API testing, is the best thing to do. And then you will, like from the code, you will understand you are working with the project, issues, task, or whenever you want. And it's more visible. In this case, you have to get the object type from the JSON, then you will understand what kind of the object is it.
Okay, how do you generate this object automatically using some of my
just let me know when we are out. I will give you one after generation one. You are giving the JSON string, it's generating the code, just copy and use it.
And the second thing, it's about, you talked about some tips and tricks using Selenium, like loader, pattern, but if you know...
Which pattern?
Loader.
Like wait for load.
Yes, exactly. Wait for page when it loads. But Selenit, you know this framework, it
does some
from
kind
the
of
box. Yes. What do you think about? Is it better to write such methods by yourself or use?
I know that some people will disagree with me, but I'm fan of creating my own specific framework that will work specifically for my application. Selenium, for example, giving the general solutions. And all the solutions are not the best one for me. I found a lot of glitches there that it's working not as expected. For example, loadable component. It's keeping some ideas.
But you can extend Selenit. You write your own methods. If you...
Why to use someone's that I can do directly? So, for the idea for me, if there is an issue in a Selenium, everybody else experiencing the same issue, pressure to the Simon who is fixing it issue, or Luke or Dave, the Selenium WebDriver team. So the pressure is bigger, so they are fixing it faster. What happens if you have a critical issue for you in a Selenit? Other ones doesn't have, only the small people who is using Selenit is using it. I'm not sure that the Selenit team will live long. It's open source project, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure that it will be faster. And also, it's open source project. I can commit the solution and they will merge it. But I don't want to spend on time. It's better for me to use pure Selenium, create my specific framework, and use my specific framework. But I will never say that using that kind of the libraries is bad. It's really, really good, and it's good for the community.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Сейчас часть, да.
I have a ticket. I will give it to you. Thank you.